From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Mixed Up Sports on mixedupsports.com, powered by twitch.tv here on this Monday, the 14th day of March 2016. Cruiser Ryan to my left, Nick Sexton to my right. Boys, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Doing great.
And, of course, with Selection Sunday being yesterday, we have an all-college basketball, all-March Madness tournament episode today, and we begin today with the teams that didn't make it, of course, before we get into how the teams were bracketed, losing again, how teams were bracketed. Apologize if you heard that. A lot of teams that you either felt were either ranked wrong or didn't make it, period. One of those teams would have to be San Diego
Florida,
State,
the Copperhead.
or a team that won the Mountain West Conference, hands down won the Mountain West, but lost to Fresno State in the final. Only Fresno State goes. San Diego State's ranked number 2 in the NIT.
Watching the game in person, there was a lot of things that just for San Diego State, it wasn't a bad game per se. However, I felt that San Diego State could have easily played better. But as far as conference goes, the fact that it's a one-in kind of situation and they were second, as you had stated, Frankie. If the name of the game is to be first, then obviously they didn't play the game, and that's how this tournament goes. You can be the best up until the last point of the season, which a lot of teams were, or they may have been not that great, and they stepped up. It's that all that really comes down to is that final stretch of games where it's like a month or two away, and you just want to play your heart out. And I didn't see that against the game in Fresno State.
I mean, you can call me biased being from San Diego, but I mean, this team, they had the fifth hardest strength of schedule. They were 16-2 in their conference, 25-9 overall, and that yet they don't get chosen. Granted, they are in the Mountain West, which isn't the strongest division or conference in the nation, but still getting 25 wins and having that tough of a schedule. I mean, even though they did lose in the final, you gotta think that this team deserves to be in the tournament.
I definitely do agree that they deserve to be in the tournament. That one loss, I mean, the rest of that conference is what completely killed them. When you have a conference that consists of you and Boise State, I mean, and you have a one-off night against Fresno State, and that knocks you out of the tournament. There are a lot of big games, like maybe the All-Star weekends, you're not really, okay, I made it, great, that's fantastic. But the NCAA tournament still is that you're proud to make it, you want to make it. It's one of those that you're on pins and needles wondering whether or not you did if you're one of those teams. And for San Diego State, the letdown here just has to be incredible. Another one of the teams that should have made it through was Monmouth. And this team, how they didn't make the tournament is beyond me. When you go 17-3 in conference play this year, that's fantastic. And of course, there are other teams that out there that that went 17-3 or maybe even better in the conference. But when you look at Monmouth, they beat UCLA, they beat Notre Dame, and they beat USC this year. Those are 3 significant wins, and they did not make the tournament. To me, that is incredible.
I agree with you. And this is also the Monmouth team where they flew under the radar for most of the season, unless you were talking about their celebrations on the bench, which, let's say, they were creative and were just out there. But I mean, like I'd say previously, they were flying under the radar. And with those wins that you stated, I'm also surprised. They deserve to be in that. I believe they were in top of their division essentially. They were the projected winners for most of it. And it's just sucks that they were snubbed at the end and didn't get the chance to play in this tournament. I would love to see those celebrations. I'd love to see what they could possibly do against these big teams like they have shown this season.
Yeah, I mean, we all, at least I only pretty much know of Monmouth because of their celebrations. But I mean, you look at their schedule and how they played. They ended up going 27-7 overall. I mean, that is nothing to laugh at. Where I thought this was just kind of one of those teams that they just kind of hype up, and they're not that great. But I mean, they've had some key wins, like you mentioned, Frankie. I mean, this team deserves to be in the tournament. Even higher than I think a 16 seed. I mean, maybe a 13, 14 seed, but I mean, it's tough to come so close to getting in the tournament and then getting shut down on Selection Sunday and having to settle for the NIT. It's tough.
Now, unlike San Diego State, Monmouth was able to get a number one seed. But speaking, now going to the actual physical bracket itself, and of course you say the teams that made it, that may have been ranked wrong, or teams that made it that shouldn't have been there. One of those teams that made it that really should not have been there, I believe, where are they? They are in the, trying to look for the Midwest. Ranked number 10 out of the Midwest is Syracuse. I am a Syracuse fan. I make no bones about that. I'm also a fan of all the Long Island teams, which congratulations to Stony Brook. We'll get to them a little bit later. Syracuse somehow made this tournament. And when you look at their overall record this year, which was absolutely atrocious, you look at their conference record, which was absolutely atrocious. The way these brackets are made is that the NCAA looks at a team and they say, all right, they're a big name team, but they've missed this big player for a lot of the year, so we'll ease off on that and we'll let them in because they missed this player. Syracuse was allowed in because they missed Jim Boeheim for 9 games. Now, the reason why I'm a little about that is because that was a 9-game suspension for having an illegal team. And you waive that to put them into the tournament? That's not right.
I mean, there's always going to be these teams like Syracuse. They're still a big name team. And what I want to look at though is with that in that same division, right? Syracuse is in that same region. Syracuse is 10, but then you got Arkansas of Little Rock here. They have an RPI rank of 42, while Syracuse has an RPI rank of 72, which goes back to how they kind of got waived to get into the tournament. But I mean, to have Arkansas or Little Rock, they're a 12 seed, yet Syracuse is a 10 seed. I mean, I think those could even be flopped, and then maybe Syracuse. I mean, they had 19 wins. Where, granted, they are in a bigger conference than than some other teams, but I completely agree with you. But another one that I want to talk about is all the way over in the let's see where are they? I think they're in the South, or maybe not. Oregon State, right? They had 19 wins on the season, and they somehow pulled out a 7 seed. I mean, they're in the West region.
The West, yeah.
Yeah. So they were 19-12, where they might have had they have a decent strength of schedule, but I mean, I don't know. I personally, based on that, I think they should be maybe a 10 or something like that.
When it comes to you guys talk about Syracuse, I will stand by your guys' side 110% of the time when it comes to this argument. Syracuse is a team that doesn't deserve to be in this tournament. And when you see someone get a free pass like this, you look at all the other teams that have worked hard to get into the conference to be snubbed.
Monmouth, San Diego State, St. Bonaventure, and
all these teams. It's like, well, where's the retribution for them? They worked hard, and there's no free pass for them. While this team, they've been good maybe in the past. That do they honestly deserve it? No, they don't. Um, but and I want to go to my team for real quick. UConn. They got a rank of 9. Now, them being my team, I'm
After
happy
an
they got.
absolutely epic game against Cincinnati.
Yeah, yeah. Um, as much as I want to say that they deserve that 9th rank, they didn't. To me, that people might disagree with that. I don't feel they should be ranked that high. They didn't play nowhere what they're capable of playing regular season. I want to believe they ranked second or third in the conference, maybe even lower than that. But the point, it's ridiculous how much teams are given based on maybe past experiences. It's
Where do you think they ranked in the conference?
I don't
What'd you
have it
say,
with me
second
on
or
the
third?
moment, but
They
it
said
was not high. It was
sixth.
not high by any means because
They
they were.
ranked sixth at the
Yeah.
ACC
Okay.
this year,
Okay. See how far I'm off because of how bad they are.
with
It
an
weren't anywhere.
11-7 record in the conference, 24-10
Yeah.
overall.
But can you see where I'm saying that they don't deserve the 9th seed by
Oh,
any
of course.
means?
Of course, I definitely,
Yeah,
I
they might
definitely
have
see.
beat Memphis in the championship game, but still, that's not doesn't give them like privy to a 9th seed, let alone in the tournament by any means necessary.
I want to go back again. We're going to go back to the Midwest here. Does somebody want to explain to me how Michigan State is not a number 1 seed, especially over, I don't know, Virginia? This is a team that finished second overall, second in the Big Ten, 29-5 over the course of the season. They were ranked RPI number 12. How Michigan State did not end up with a number 1 seed in this tournament is beyond me.
I want to, it's a bit ridiculous. They worked hard. They were one of the better teams throughout the entire season. Where you've had certain games from other first seeds who were just dropped off and had completely terrible games. I feel like we've never truly had that with the Michigan State. All their games were either they won by a lot or they lost by a little. They weren't like a team that dropped off a significant amount, like we had Oklahoma being shut out in the second half a couple weeks ago. And granted, Oklahoma's a second state in their side of the bracket in the West, but we've never had that with Michigan State. I personally think that they should be ranked over Virginia, but I'm not running the NCAA bracket. If I was, they would obviously be up there.
I mean, I don't know if obviously they should be a 1 seed with um, all their accolades this year. But I mean, honestly, I feel like this might be a good thing because it kind of puts a chip on their shoulder, for them to kind of show the world that hey, we deserve to be a 1 seed. We know it. Now we just have to show you.
Easier of a run too through the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think that as it is kind of annoying for them not to be in the champion or not in the championship at the first seed, they might get to the championship. But as it is annoying for them not to be the number 1 seed, it might light a fire under them to prove to the world that they deserve that number 1 seed.
Michigan State, I'm reading it right now, has a 29-5 record, whereas Virginia had a 26-7 record. Based on the records alone, they're better than Virginia.
The only reason I can think of is because they lost all of their games inside the conference. That's the only reason I can think that Michigan State was not ranked number 1. But we will take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Do not go away.